Hello, my lovely kids. So just as I promised yesterday, I'm making a video so that we can go through the new NCPT document, all right, and how this applies to your week 1 case study. So just letting you know over here that this is the new NCPT document, and we had discussed this in the afternoon batch because this document was provided to me by Professor Roseanne Kruger in the afternoon. So everybody, so for all of us to be on the same page, the NCPT document that we will be referring to in your T1 would be the 2020 version. All right, and this is how it looks like. Okay, so this is provided to us by Professor Roseanne. And what I have done is I have added the 2020 version, this document, to your Canvas site. So in your Canvas, now you have the 2020 version NCPT document. Okay, just to give you a FYI sort of update, there is a new version after this 2023 version, but the 2023 version is not student friendly. What do I mean by student friendly? Here you have the P written for you, and here you have the explanation given so that you can understand that is this P appropriate for my assessment diagnosis or not. So this is a very student friendly version because it gives you explanation of each of the P. But the 2023 version is developed more for experienced dietitian professionals, where you only have the P, you have no such explanation, and which is why I thought that it's not the right one to use for students because students are learning this for the very first time. It's good for you to have a document like this, which has this sort of an explanation. All right, so Roseanne is completely on board with us, and she also agrees that yes, this sort of a document, although it is an older version, it is much useful because it has all of this, explanation for students. So we will be using the 2020 version. This is available on your Canvas. And this is what we'll be using for assignment 1. And even if there are any further changes, apart from this version, if there is any other updated student-friendly version, please rest assured that for your assignment 1, we will only use this 2020 version. I do not want any more back and forth and confusion because I just want you guys to focus solely and comfortably on your assignment 1. Okay, so we will be using this no matter what's happening in the world. Okay, so this is a good enough document for us to be using. So we will be using 2020 version, and this is what we will be using for your assignment 1. So please print this one out and have it in your clinical folders. And yes, you can bring this one to your exams. Okay, and your assignment. Okay, so yep, that is well decided and it is all good. Now what I want to do is I want to explain you how do you use what is the most appropriate P for your week 1 case study based on the 2020 version. All right, so when you see over here, we'll just go right on the top. So we have the P that does not change for you, which is consistent, is inadequate oral intake. And in bracket, we had written in your week 1 assignment what exactly that was energy and protein. Okay, so inadequate oral intake for energy and protein. So this P does not change. This is consistent. This is what we learned in the workshop in our workshop time, and this has no changes whatsoever. Okay, so just flagging you over here that inadequate oral intake, and when we were going through RP, we also had inadequate oral intake. And in bracket, I had written for you energy and protein because you have to be specific. You have to tell me what is the inadequate oral intake for. Here it is for energy and protein. I just realized my face is completely black. You can't see anything. Not that it's necessary to see my face, but it just makes it more human. Okay. So, yep. I think now this is normal. All right. So yes, what P does not change. If you remember, we had used two P's, and malnutrition case studies are the only time where you have two P's that you can use. The first P we had was inadequate oral intake. That does not change. And in bracket, you have to write which nutrients was the inadequacy for. So for our week 1 case study, the inadequacy was for energy and protein. Okay. So that is consistent. That stays. Now let me explain to you the P for malnutrition. Okay. So I'll just take this document aside for 2 seconds. So where is the malnutrition P in your document? So when you scroll down and when you come to here, over here you have malnutrition disorder. So you have malnutrition, say this is your number 1 malnutrition P. Then you have starvation related malnutrition. Then you have chronic disease malnutrition, acute disease or injury related malnutrition. These two are pediatric malnutrition. You are not studying pediatric in MNT1. So do not even bother about these last two ones. Okay. So the ones which we have to pay attention to in your MNT1 is this one, 2, this 3, and 4. Okay. These 4 P's are something that we have to pay attention to. And we have to use our clinical reasoning to understand which of these 4 P is the most appropriate P for our week 1 case study. Okay. So I have scaffolded this for you in this document. So this document is labeled PES, the PES document and something about intervention, which I'll talk a little bit later. But yes, this document I will be providing to you on your Canvas. Okay, so when we go to Canvas in your week 1 workshop, just where I have given you answers, where you have the SGA completed form, the dietitian progress note, DDR answer. Below this, I'll be putting this Word document of mine, the one which I showed you. Okay, this one. So I'll be putting that up. All right. So don't worry. You will be having this even as a Word document. Okay. Not just a recording. And I hope I'm sharing the right screen. It's just, sorry, it's just freaking me out. So let me just check if I'm sharing the right screen with you. Yep, I'm sharing the right screen. Okay, thank goodness. All right. Okay, so now let me go through the P with you and my underlying clinical reasoning for selecting one of the 4 Ps. You cannot select all of the Ps. You have to have a strong clinical reasoning and select one P. So what is our clinical reasoning? Let me start from the bottom. Okay, so acute disease or injury related malnutrition. So first, let me tell you what is the commonality among these 4 Ps. So when you read these 4 Ps, there is something very common among them, that is that this malnutrition for all of these 4 Ps is related to inadequate energy and protein intake over a period of time. And because of this, you have fat and muscle wasting happening. Okay. So this yellow color thing is what I have highlighted everywhere to show you that that is a common feature among all of these 4 malnutrition related Ps. Okay. So that does not really help us a lot in terms of selecting which P is most appropriate. We know in our patient for week 1 case study, we know that yes, he is not having enough amount of energy and protein, that we have well established. All right. And we also know that he's not been having enough amount of energy and protein since the past 1 month, since he's had, say, pulmonary edema and he's had the pneumonia infection. Okay, so from that time, he's not been eating well. Energy and protein, we know that. And it's been for 1 month. We also know that he has had considerable muscle and fat wasting. How do we know that? Because we have conducted an SGA. So like, as you know, medical assessment form you have conducted, you had that little blurb. And with that little blurb, you completed the second page of the SGA form, from which we have concluded that, yes, he has significant muscle and fat wasting. Okay. So basically, in terms of a case study, we had enough data to show that yes, we are in the right direction. We should definitely be looking at malnutrition as our P, because we have met both of the condition, which is patient is not eating enough amount of energy and protein. Yes, patient is experiencing muscle and fat loss. Okay, so that is well established. All right. So now what else is there in this definition, in this explanation? And this is literally copy pasted from that colorful document of yours. How do I identify which P is the best one for my week 1 case study? Okay, so I start with this one from the bottom. Acute disease or injury related malnutrition. What is the definition over here? Inadequate energy and protein intake, which has resulted in muscle and fat mass loss. Okay, so yes, we have established our patient has experienced this. Then what does it say? Apparent marked inflammatory response. Okay, so apparent marked, meaning there has to be considerable, significant, major inflammatory response. Okay, and this has to be in the context of acute illness or injury, meaning you need to have some sort of blood test indicators to show that there is a significant proportion of systemic inflammation happening in the body, because the blood markers are telling you that. And this inflammation is because of an underlying acute disease condition or acute illness or acute injury. All right. So looking at this definition, there is one more bit of the definition. Indicators to identify moderate and severe acute disease or injury related malnutrition must be included here, meaning you cannot use this statement without conducting an SGA. And please note, even if this statement was not there, for the best dietetic practice is when you have to use the term malnutrition, and because in Australia dietitians have it is within our scope of practice to diagnose a person with malnutrition, we do not use the term malnutrition nonchalantly. Okay, we don't just use casually. We have evidence, that is, we have conducted SGA, and then only we can use the term malnutrition. So please make sure that even if this little line is not included in all of your definition, because it is not included in the first type of malnutrition definition, I would still not just casually use the term malnutrition if I have not done SGA. So as dietetic best practice, we only use the term malnutrition when we have actually done a nutritional assessment. And now nutritional assessment is very different from nutritional screening based upon your pre-readings. Okay. So yes, over here, the definition clearly says that please, this last statement tells you, please do your SGA, okay, and be sure that the person is having, say, moderate or severe malnutrition, which is associated to an acute disease or acute injury. We have done an SGA, so we are good with that. Okay. We have also established that our patient is not having enough amount of energy and protein, and because of which he has had muscle and fat mass loss. All right. So yes, we have established that. In the week 1 clinical case study, do we have blood test results to show that there is significant amount of inflammation, not just some little amount of inflammation, significant amount of inflammation. Okay. So this is what I have scaffolded over here for you. Okay. So let me go through these points. So our patient had wrist fracture. Okay. So that is called as an acute injury. So yep, our patient does have acute injury. Wrist fracture is an acute injury. Whenever you have something breaking in your body, okay, meaning a fracture, you definitely have systemic inflammation happening. Do we have one of the gold, say, blood test for systemic inflammation is C-reactive protein. Do we have data on C-reactive protein? No, we do not have data on C-reactive protein. Okay. What else in the blood test do we have data, which is an indicator of inflammation? White blood cells. We do have white blood cell count. Okay. And whenever your white blood cell count is increasing, meaning your immunity has, say, been activated, and your immunity is trying to fight something, and this will create systemic inflammation. So white blood cell count is also an indirect indicator of some level of inflammation. Okay, so just letting you know that we do have white blood cell count, but is this applicable to our case study? Let's look at the points further. So my next point is, but a wrist fracture, which I agree is an acute injury, but the wrist fracture has not caused malnutrition in this case. So it was not that, oh, my poor patient had a wrist fracture for 1 month and he could not use his hand and he could not feed himself, which is why he became malnourished. That is not the case. Our patient was malnourished from, say, like a period of 1 month. Okay, so roughly, when I talk about, when he, from the onset of pneumonia. Okay, so yes, our patient has been malnourished, but definitely wrist fracture has not caused malnutrition. Malnutrition happened long before the wrist fracture. Okay, so wrist fracture may be an outcome of malnutrition. You have been malnourished for some period of time. Okay, and because of that, maybe like, when you were trying to get out of bed, you had this fall and you like, broke your wrist. Okay. But I would need to have my Jerry screening done to be sure of that. Okay. But does that make sense? All right. So this is very important. Caitlin is calling me. So I'll just have to tell Caitlin to wait. So just this is your recording as well. So just give me 2 seconds. All right.
That's okay.
Hey, Caitlin.
Go ahead.
Caitlin, I'm actually recording the malnutrition thing for you. So I'll just message you back when I have done the recording. Okay, so you will be in this recording, so don't be shocked. Okay, I just
Okay.
don't want to delete it. All right. Okay. Yeah. See you. Sorry about that, guys, but because it was Caitlin, I answered because you know who Caitlin is. So you will not be, quite shocked. Okay, so yes, where were we? That yes, definitely, it is not that the wrist fracture has caused malnutrition. The patient was malnourished for a period of time. Okay, so our acute injury is not the cause of malnutrition. And over here, to use this P, our acute injury needs to be a cause of malnutrition, which is not our case. Okay. So that is one point, which is why this is not the best P, but I have more points. I have more clinical justification following. So the next point is patient has malnutrition due to acute disease. So yes, I agree. Pneumonia is a acute disease. All right. It is an infection which happens and then the person gradually recovers. So definitely our patient does have acute disease, which is pneumonia, all right, which he had for the past 1 month, okay, which is now resolved, but he still has ongoing pulmonary edema. Okay, this is again an acute condition. So I do agree that our acute injury is not the cause of malnutrition, but I do agree that acute disease is a cause of malnutrition for us. Okay, but do remember this acute disease is now resolved. Pneumonia is now resolved. He's not currently suffering from pneumonia. Okay, so what is very important in this P malnutrition PES statement is that yes, your acute disease or acute injury should be related to malnutrition, should be a cause of malnutrition, but very, very important, the second variable is that you should have significant or apparent marked inflammatory response. When we look at our white blood cell count, okay, for the patient, he has slightly high white blood cell count, very, very slight, like it's 12, and the range is between 4 to 11. This in no means is apparently marked inflammatory response, okay? So absolutely not. There is a very mild inflammation, and this is more likely to be an after effect of the pneumonia infection that he had 1 month ago. Okay. So definitely, although he has pneumonia, we do not have significant marked inflammation, which is why I will not be using this PES statement. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. I hope the reasoning makes sense. So guys, this is what I had a discussion with Roseanne is that the new document that you have, we have to do a lot of this sort of brainstorming and clinical reasoning for the more, say, complex conditions such as diabetes, etc., etc. When I'll be teaching you in T1, okay? Malnutrition in your older version was a very, very simple little PES statement, just one thing, malnutrition. But now malnutrition also requires a significant amount of clinical reasoning and thinking. Okay, so this starts from week 1 for you with the new version of the NCPT document, but it is what it is. That is why I'm spending this time to exactly explain you how you should be interpreting and understanding these P's, because when you have your exam case study, you will also be looking at these 4 P's. You will be doing the same sort of clinical reasoning that I am doing, and you will be applying this sort of clinical reasoning to your exam case study. Okay, so MNT is all about application of knowledge. There is really nothing to memorize. Nobody is asking you to memorize this definition, because that is not going to help a patient. What is going to help a patient is your clinical reasoning skills. And this, what I have done for you in this blue dots and what I explained, that is called as clinical reasoning. Okay. So these are clinical reasons as to why this is not the most appropriate P for our week 1 case study. Now we go on to the chronic disease related malnutrition. So over here, again, yes, our patient has had energy protein loss, means less energy protein intake. And yes, he's had fat and muscle loss because our SGA form has confirmed that. Okay. With mild or moderate amount of inflammation. Okay. In the context of the disease or illness. Do we have mild inflammation? Yes, we do meet this parameter. We do have mild inflammation. We have little inflammation, 12, and the range is 4 to 11. So I agree, we have mild inflammation. But pneumonia is not a chronic ongoing disease condition. Okay. So pneumonia is not something that the person will have for the rest of his life. No, pneumonia is an infection which happens and then it goes away. Okay. So yes, pneumonia, the disease condition that our patient is suffering from, cannot be classified as chronic. So definitely pneumonia is not a chronic condition which has caused malnutrition. So do you see how here the disease was right, but the inflammation was not right? Here the disease was not right, but the inflammation was right. But to use a P statement, you need to have all of the variables aligning and making the most sense. Okay. So this also does not make sense. I would not be using this P statement. All right. Then you have starvation related malnutrition. Okay, so over here, do we have inadequate energy and protein intake? Yes, we do. Over a period of time, 1 month. Okay, it's not like 6 months, but still 1 month. Okay, I give that to you. Do we have fat and muscle loss? Yes, we do. Then without apparent inflammation, no, hang on. There is still a little after effect of inflammation going on. We do have white blood cell count, which is slightly high. So I would not say that the person is completely inflammation free, especially if he has ongoing pulmonary edema. That could be like, related to a little bit of inflammation that is going on in his body. Okay. So do we have, say, what else? There's mild inflammation present. Yes, we do have mild inflammation present. We do have mild inflammation present. White blood cell count is high. Okay, and that may be because, as I said, because of the pneumonia and maybe the side effects, which is still ongoing pulmonary edema. So we are not completely devoid of no inflammation. So are we meeting all of the criterias? Yes, we have done an SGA. We can tell you that our person is severely malnourished. Yes, we have inadequate energy and protein intake. Yes, it is over a period of time. Yes, we do have muscle and fat mass loss because we have done an SGA, but we are not without any inflammation. We do have some level of inflammation. So this is still not the most accurate P statement. Okay. So then we go on to our last P statement, malnutrition. Inadequate energy protein intake. Yes, inadequate. Over a period of time, 1 month, considerable period of time. Okay. Has this negatively impacted growth development? So this is not a child. It's not about growth and development. but still the interpretation is and or has it resulted in fat and muscle mass loss stores, which is what you would see in a geriatric patient? Yes, it certainly has. Okay. And because of best clinical dietetic practice, even to use this P statement, I will have to do SGA. You cannot not do SGA and use a malnutrition P statement. That is like the first bottom rule. Okay. So yes, this is my most relevant and most accurate P for my week 1 case study. So how do I write this? This is what I do. I say severe malnutrition. Why do I write the term severe? Because I have done an SGA. I know whether my patient is moderate, severe, etc. Okay, so you are allowed and you should be writing severe or moderate, whatever it is. So in our week 1 case study, it is severe. Malnutrition, this is what I have, the term I have taken exactly how it is reported in the NCPT document. So malnutrition, which is in bracket undernutrition, very important. As I said, this does not change. You have to tell me whether this is acquired in the hospital or in the community. This is acquired in the community. Okay. So it's community acquired severe malnutrition. Okay. And everything else is the same: inadequate oral intake, energy, and protein. All right. All of this is the same. Okay. All of this is the same. Nothing of this changes. All right. So I hope, guys, this was helpful and this is meaningful now as to how do you clinically reason and rationalize to choose the most relevant and appropriate P for your case study. This is exactly what you will have to do for your exam. Now that you have 4 Ps, you will have to rationalize and choose the most appropriate P for your exam, which is upcoming. Okay. One more thing which I would like to point out is that over here in the afternoon batch, the team had kindly pointed out that I had done some calculation errors. So over here, if you see in the recording, it will be 30 grams of protein, which is not appropriate because the person is having 2 eggs, okay, at lunch or dinner, which is 600 kilojoules. It comes from here, ready recna, quick ready recna, which gives you 12 gram of protein, okay, 2 eggs. And this also comes from the quick ready recna. Because over here I have updated my calculation. So if you see that the patient is meeting, yes, nearly greater than 70% of the estimated protein requirement, and the energy remains the same. Okay, so my error was in this protein calculation over here. But guys, very, very importantly, what I want to tell you that when I do have errors in the case study that I share with you, the answers that I share with you, first, yes, please let me know. I am very grateful and this helps me update the document for you so all of us can be on the same page. First things first, but very, very important for your learning, okay? Because I will update this. For me, this is not a big thing when I'm teaching. Why? Because when I teach you, I need to teach you the clinical skills, meaning, as I said multiple times in the class, all of you will never have the same intervention. All of you will have different ideas to increase the patient's energy and protein. So never forego the big take home message from what I teach you. So over here in an intervention, the most important message is that okay, the patient needs to increase energy and protein. First, if he's in the hospital, I need to put the diet code. Okay. Secondly, I need to select food options which are genuinely high in energy and protein, not go down the rabbit hole of fruits and veggies and breakfast cereal because that does not make sense. Okay, those are not genuinely high in energy and protein. Okay, so the take home message over here is that am I selecting the right sort of foods for my patient, high in energy, high in protein? Have I done my calculations right? You will have to do it right for the exams. Okay. And thirdly, if he is having any sort of oral nutrition supplement, do I have to modify anything in that? In this case, you had to at least the flavor. And if you made it more energy and nutrient dense, which I did, this has more amount of protein, more protein dense, then good luck, which is great. Okay, but basically the take home message over here are the following ones which I told you. So when I teach you things, when you find error, please, please tell me. It's great because I need set of like fresh eyes to, look over these things. As you know, I develop so many case studies across like, every year I try to develop like, newer and newer case studies for my students. So I need that. I need that feedback because, yes, because I'm one person doing bajillion case studies. So I'm very grateful, and it helps me a lot to update the errors. But please, guys, don't get boggled down with mistakes and not forget your take home message, because the take home message is very important for you to be able to apply the skills in your own exams and in your placements. Okay, so I hope that is helpful, guys. So I will be uploading this document onto Canvas. I'll put it over here. I'll put this recording as well over here itself. So you have everything in one place, which makes it easier. Just making sure, is there anything else which I wanted to tell you? Oh, yes. Because I made that error in protein, guys, I have corrected my progress note. So now you have 12 grams of protein coming from those 2 eggs. Okay, so I've updated the progress note, and the updated progress note is already provided to you in this Canvas site. Okay. So yes, guys, that's all I wanted to let you know. And I'll be seeing you next week for your SGA practice. Please look at the SGA video. That will give you a much better idea as to what is it that you will be doing next week. Okay, so that's all from my end. Thank you so much. See you soon.